Hi, I'm Ita Bay, and today I'm going to talk to you about the 3 ways we are failing at teaching our children reading comprehension and what you can do about it. I think you'll find number 2 especially surprising. I think it'll be an aha for you. So stay tuned. Welcome. So if you're here, I bet you're a parent who's got a child at home who's struggling with reading comprehension, or maybe you're a teacher or a tutor and you're helping your students develop this skill. Either way, you are exactly in the right place. And I think this is going to make a big difference. I know it will. It will make a big difference in helping your students really understand this skill. So let's get right to it. Number 1. Here's the first reason, and you maybe recognize this already. The very first reason we are failing at teaching children reading comprehension is that we are testing, not teaching. We're testing our children, not teaching our children. And the perfect example would be those darned worksheets. I bet you know those worksheets. Your children have them right now. Maybe you're passing them out to your students. They have a little reading passage, and then they have reading comprehension questions right underneath. And the problem with those reading comprehension questions or worksheets is that they're not actually developing the skill. Now, they might be giving some practice for a certain kind of reading comprehension, but they're basically practicing testing them. And the reason this is because first off, those worksheets are too narrow. They give the false impression that reading comprehension, reading that passage is one thing, which would be if you've comprehended this passage, you will correctly answer these questions. And that's actually false. And what I mean by that is that if you think, you can think in your own life, when you learn to read, let's say you had a favorite book when you were a child. If you were to read that book now as an adult, you would see things in that text that you did not see before. So does that mean you didn't have good reading comprehension? It means that you were at a certain developmental stage and a certain life experience stage, and maybe at a certain stage in terms of decoding and interpreting and defining words. But the biggest reason why is that you were just at a different stage of development and life experience. And so that is one of the main factors in reading comprehension. So what happens is the child is going to get that page that's testing their reading comprehension, not teaching them. And they're going to get that test, that worksheet. And if they don't get those questions right, they're going to feel discouraged. And that is not the way you set a child or anybody up for learning. You don't start by discouraging them. You need to start where they are. So I'm going to get into all the ways in which we can shift from teaching instead of testing in the second part of this video. Okay, the second reason. The second reason we are failing at teaching reading comprehension, and this I hope will be an aha moment for some of us, is we fail to understand what reading comprehension really is. Reading comprehension is only partly about words. It's really, what is reading comprehension really? It is about the inner image that the reader creates when they're reading the text. That's what reading comprehension is. It is another way to think about it, and this is the way I like to think about it, is that it's a translation from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions. So take a moment with that. When you look at a text, those words and those lines and that rectangular page, that is a flat 2-dimensional linear experience. Reading comprehension is taking that linear experience, taking those symbols. Remember, words are symbols pointing at the finger pointing at the moon, right? They're symbols pointing towards something that is dynamic. It's an inner experience, an inner image. So those words must be translated from that flat experience into a multidimensional experience. And if you are not explicitly teaching that reading comprehension is a movement from 2D to 3D, then you are failing at teaching reading comprehension. And so I'm going to get more into exactly how to do that in the second part of this video. Okay, number 3. So now that you understand number 1 and number 2, the third one is like a combination of both of those. So number 3, the third reason we fail at teaching our children reading comprehension is because we are not working with the child's inner image. And in fact, if anything, we're working with the teacher's inner image and then testing the child to see if their inner image matches our inner image. But again, that's not teaching, that's testing. And that's not really a fair test, right? Because you as an adult will have different developmental life experience and different capacity for interpreting those words, okay? So you are not working with the actual image, and that is where reading comprehension takes place. When you learn to get a window into your learner's inner image, then you will you finally get to begin teaching reading comprehension. Okay, so take that all in. I'm going to take a little breather. And we'll get to the second part of the video. Okay, so let's get to the solutions. So number 1, how do you shift from testing to teaching? You start by understanding that reading comprehension is always, 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 always a meeting between the text, the inner image that the reader is creating, and the reader's developmental stage, their life experience, and their ability to decode, interpret, define the words in the text. Okay, so those are the three points. Oftentimes we've been focusing only on one, which is the words, but we really need to start to understand that we are working with all these 3 interacting spaces. So to move from teaching into teaching and away from testing, you need to begin by acknowledging and understanding what the learner does comprehend and what image they are creating from the text. So what image is your learner creating from the text? Okay, and then once you get that little window into their inner image, then you can help them start to use the text to develop that inner image and make it more complex in a way that matches the text. And when you're getting into a higher level reading comprehension, where you're working with inference, for example, then you can actually start to move or play inside of that inner image. So teaching requires starting right with where that learner is and then getting a window into the inner image they're creating from the text. And then you, as the facilitator, get to help them work with that text to develop and play inside of that inner image. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, let me go change the notes. Okay, number 2. So I've already talked about this, but it's about how do we create? So how do we create that window into the inner image? And there's a few ways that I will talk about. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. I'm going to have probably multiple videos on the channel and examples of exactly how to do this. But I'm going to talk to you about one of my favorite ways, and this works especially well with younger learners, which is to work with objects, to work with toys. So I've got some objects that I like to use. This is one that one of my children actually drew on and created. And here's some blank little ones. And then I've got some other kinds of toys, and you probably have these around, or you can grab some or even game pieces you can work with, even stones. I have stones here. Any kind of object that they can manipulate will be able, you can use to get a picture, a window into the inner image that your learner is developing from the text. So for example, you can say, hey, use these toys, and you can lay out the toys to show me what you see happening in the image that you've created from the text. And you can see just from how I'm languaging that one of the things that I'm doing is explicitly naming that what happens when we read is that we create an inner image. So I'm reading and I have a sense that Jack and Jill are going up a hill, okay? So, I got my two toys here and I'm gonna say, okay, Jack, Jill, we're going up the hill. And I am expressing, I'm demonstrating to you the inner image that I have from the text. Okay, so that's the easiest way. Go ahead and play with this. Start with a couple sentences at a time and just have them demonstrate to you what are they seeing? What are they imagining when they read the text? Okay, number 3 is learning to work with the inner image. And again, this is one of my favorite things. My work is really all about embodiment. There's we call in the world of psychology, there's a term called embodied cognition, which basically means that you're not just a brain. The information that you learn is something that you can sense with your whole body. And then when you take information just from your brain, which is very shallow, trying to manipulate information just in your head, it's a very shallow form of learning. You want to get fully embodied cognition, fully embodied learning. And one of the main ways you can do that is by learning to work, teaching your learner, demonstrating for the learner how to work with an inner image. And when you do this, what you're doing is you're beginning to help them complete the image that the text is creating. Okay? So for example, one thing you can do as the teacher is you can have all of the learners demonstrate what they are getting out of the text. And it doesn't have to be the same. I really want to encourage you to encourage your students and reassure yourself that they do not all have to be getting the same thing out of the text. They might get really surprising things from a text that you wouldn't get. And this is an opportunity for you to learn from your students, to really value how they are making sense of the text, to value the inner image that they are creating from the text. And then you can also contribute your own inner image. You can say, hey, well, when I read this text, this is what I get. And you can use your figures, right? And you can demonstrate, here's what I see when I read this text. And then you can say, well, there are some words in here that I noticed a lot of you didn't have in your image, like fetch. Maybe that's the word. What does it mean to fetch? So you can have Jack and Jill go up the hill, right? And then they have to fetch that pail. So you can show what fetching means in your inner image, and that will help to map the text to the experience for your learners. Okay. And finally, this is kind of an advanced level reading comprehension. We're already getting there. And it has to do with inference. So if I have Jack and Jill, okay, then I can say, oh, what would you feel if you were Jack and Jill going up that hill? What would you feel if you were Jill? What would you feel if you were Jack? So these are just ways to expand the story. These are ways to start to move around and play with that inner image, which is really the hallmark of more sophisticated reading comprehension. Okay, I hope that helps. If it was helpful to you, subscribe to my channel. I've got lots more like this. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love what I have for you. Ring that bell, so hit the notifications bell so that way you get notified when I upload a new video. And I'm so glad you're here. Leave me some notes in the comments if this was helpful to you. And if it wasn't helpful to you, or if you have questions, leave those as well, and I can answer those in future videos.